It's time to step in the shed for episode 44 of the Emergency Storage Shed Cleanup Series. We were a bit behind last week with family bereavements and COVID and lots of other stuff going on. We're currently getting solar panels put on the roof of our house. So there's never a dull moment around here. Let's go and have a look and see what we can get out today. Just before we enter the shed, there's a pan down the length of it. So you can see we have a fair way to go. Actually, let's go down the back, and you can see by the back window that it is packed fairly well. Yep, we got a lot of stuff in here, all right. So where we're going to attack now, we did the circuit breakers just the other day. Let's move down a shelf and take out perhaps the milk crate there on the right. It looks like it's got a 2-stroke brush cutter engine in it. I don't know what else, maybe a soldering iron from what I can see on the edge. Let's take it into the bench and check it out. Okay, I am pleased that with all the interruptions we've been having and things going on, I'm still managing to meet my obligations of something every week out of that shed, and I'm pretty determined to stick with it. I reckon if I can get through a bad dose of COVID, which I'm still feeling very weak, but I think I'm okay. And of course, Dad's memorial, we've got another big community memorial next Monday to give the local townspeople a chance to come and say goodbye to him. So with everything going on, I want to stick with this obligation. It's keeping me motivated, and hopefully that helps motivate you guys. Okay, this crate does look to be small engine stuff, so we need to make some decisions here. This is definitely an old brush cutter motor, 2-stroke. I suspect this has been converted to run on a push bike. Back before little electric bikes were available, people used to modify these. That's a big rubber, I guess it's been made into like a drive wheel. There's no clutch on it anymore. It would have run on the tire of a bike, and it's been homemade. Don't know how well it would have gone, but anyway, it's no longer in that employment anymore. The spark plug's still in it. I don't know what it's like inside. The fuel tank's loose. Not sure what we're going to do with that. We might have an inspection and see what the engine looks like inside. It's an older model one, 25cc, fairly large size for a brush cutter. Not sure what brand it was. It'd be a Japanese one of some sort. And it would probably date back to the 80s, I would think, something like that, maybe even the 70s. This is all small engine stuff. Here's some... Actually, this looks like parts off the one engine we've just had. The muffler cover, air filter, shroud over the engine, and a few various bolts. So some electrical stuff here. There is a soldering iron, a good old Burco. We've had a lot of these. This one's been dropped off the bench at some stage and bent the tip. The wiring needs attention there, probably a new cord. I bet you the element still works. I've never had one of these that doesn't work. It's probably worth putting a new cord on it. And we might be able to straighten the tip with a bit of luck. The other wiring here, not sure what, old test leads. Don't know what they're from. Not sure on that. Probably just scrap wire. We have a fuel tank here and a carby assembly from probably a 5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton. So that's clearly off an engine that's been dismantled, probably because it had issues. Don't know what's in the tank. Something's loose in there. What do we have here? Cylinder head rethreader kit. It's a deep reach tapping tool for a spark plug thread. That will probably be handy. We'll check that out soon. And the rest of this box is just various Briggs & Stratton mufflers. These are off Briggs & Stratton lawnmower engines, usually 3 up to 5 horsepower. And they all look quite serviceable still. That one's a bit rusty. I don't think that's a Briggs though, that one. It's a different shape. They were the earlier Briggs. They just had a screw in like a plumbing fitting thread in. And another one much the same. So what do I do with these? Well, I think they're still quite useful. And there's the guard off one of the square ones. If I'm going to start doing a few lawnmower repairs, and I would like to once I have a bit of room in my shed, mufflers are things that do need replacing from time to time. And if I can put a good second-hand muffler on a lawnmower to make it saleable, that's much better than spending the money on buying a new muffler. Failing that, they could all certainly go in the scrap metal just as pressing steel. Very little value there, but at least that all would be recycled. But I think it's worth stacking a few Briggs mufflers in a box because it's fairly likely I will use some of those. Alternatively, I could put them in the shop at $5 each. Perhaps that's a better way to do it. Give them a bit of a clean up. That one's probably a bit far gone. That one may go in the scrap. But that's quite a good muffler, still very solid, no rust, other than a little bit of surface rust. No damage to the mounting part of it. A very quick clean up, just a wipe over, put them in a box in the shop. Briggs & Stratton mufflers, $5 each. We might sell them. If we do, great. $5 is much better than a few cents for scrap. If I don't sell them, I know where to find them if I need them. And it gets them out of my shed. Well, that deals with most of that box, actually. So really, we haven't got much to sell here. I don't know whether I should keep this or not, or probably just put that in the scrap. It's an older style Briggs engine. It looks like it's fairly well used. I usually check the throttle butterfly on these. If there's a lot of slop back and forward, you know it's well worn. This one's actually not too bad. Now they have a little diaphragm behind that plate there. Probably the thing to check here is just to make sure there's no rust in the bottom of the tank, because these tanks did notoriously rust out with water being left in them, and water comes out of the fuel. And just looking at the light reflecting through there, it actually looks pretty good. So it's probably quite a serviceable tank and carby there. I won't scrap it. Maybe that could go in the shop at $5. Someone that does engine repairs would probably appreciate a non-rusted tank. Don't think it's worth eBaying. I'll do a little bit of checking on that though. So this video really isn't going to return us many dollars. Maybe some mufflers, maybe $5 or $10 on this. I'll do a bit of checking, I'll do a bit of cleaning up, and then we'll have an inspection of this brush cutter motor. Okay, let's get on to this old brush cutter motor. I'm going to dismantle it a little bit just to see what it's like inside. It's probably not really worth the effort because it's it's a fairly old model. I would suggest it's probably late 70s. Just looking at, it has an electronic module on the side, so it's after the old ones that had points under the flywheel, but it's before they incorporated the module into the coil. So maybe early 80s, late 70s. It's not going to be of much value, even if it's good condition. All the rubber parts and plastic parts on it have gone very hard. The fuel hose, the primer bulb, probably the tank is brittle. It may even have a crack in it. So I'm certainly not going to restore it and get it going. We don't have a clutch for it either. But just for curiosity's sake, and perhaps to show you how a good way to appraise a two-stroke engine, we'll just have a bit of a look inside the muffler port and see what the internals look like. Let's get rid of this fuel tank for a start. It's only held on by the fuel line that has gone very hard. So we'll just remove that surgically. And I'll bring the camera a bit closer and we'll take the muffler off, because that's the best way to quickly ascertain the condition of a two-stroke engine. Okay, let's see how easy the exhaust studs are to remove. I'm guessing it hasn't been off for a long time. 8mm spanner. I'm not really, if I was restoring this engine or doing it as a repair job, I'd be very cautious here because it's likely that the studs will turn off in the alloy housing, and I would take it much slower and probably impact the end of the stud to try and jar up the threads, and just do it gradually. But I'm honestly not too concerned if these turn off, because we're not going to rebuild this engine. Usually the nuts will unscrew, but as I said, quite often the studs will actually turn off right next to the alloy block, and then of course you would have to drill them out and retap the threads. That one looks like it's going to undo off the stud all right, and this one may well do as well. There you go, Murphy's Law, I guess. Just because we don't need to worry about it, they come off beautifully. If it was critical, guaranteed they'd probably both want to turn off. Just one of the many challenges of being a two-stroke mechanic or a small engine mechanic. There's challenges in every field, I guess, and usually Murphy is the culprit that causes the challenges. Okay, the nuts come off that one and off this one. Alright, is there another bolt holding on the muffler? No, it looks like it's just the 2 studs into the cylinder. It's loose. Oh, we do have another bolt down the bottom, hiding underneath, or a screw I should say. That one's coming out fine. Okay. There we go. The muffler's not in bad condition. We have an exhaust gasket there. And now we get to see inside the cylinder. And I was saying this is by far the best way to evaluate the condition of a 2-stroke, because any lack of lubrication or heat damage or scoring on a 2-stroke is nearly always on the exhaust side of the piston. And we can see right up the side of the skirt of the piston, and we can actually see it's got reasonable compression, and we can see the rings, and there appears to be no damage there. I'm not sure if you'll see that through the camera. Let's see if we can zoom in a bit. Let's get the light reflection okay. So there's the rings, 2 rings. Very good quality engine. A lot of the cheaper ones just had a single ring. There's no damage to the rings, and the side of the piston actually looks very good. So this would run, this engine would run. It feels like it's got reasonable compression in the top end. And of course, also critical for a 2-stroke is that you have to have an airtight sump or a crankcase to enable the fuel air mixture to get from the inlet side into the sump and then up to the top of the cylinder via the transfer ports. This appears to be in pretty good condition. The bearings on the crank don't feel too bad. What to do? I don't like throwing something in the scrap that's actually not in bad condition. You know, I reckon I might leave all the parts in a box and put this engine in the shop just as it is, so anyone that likes to tinker and dabble with 2-strokes or small engines can actually see that it's in pretty good condition. And who knows, someone may have a similar one at home that I want to rebuild. We don't still know what brand it is. I'm pretty sure it's Japanese. It's likely maybe a Kawasaki or a Shindawa, or there's plenty of Japanese brush cutter manufacturers around the late 70s into the 80s. Tanaka was another good one. I don't think it's Tanaka or Taz. They're often abbreviated to, which was Tanaka and Son. This one's complete. Other than part of the carby is missing, and I don't have it's a motorbike style carburetor rather than the normal diaphragm style. I don't have the slide that goes with it, but it's possibly a universal type carby. You could possibly mate up a standard diaphragm carby with it. I reckon I'm going to put this in a box at the shop as a project. Given that the engine is not seized, it's not scored badly, it would actually be repairable. We might just put $10 on it as a project for someone. Well, I've decided nothing's going in the scrap metal other than this wire. There's about $1 worth of insulated copper wire there. The only thing I'm keeping here is the spark plug rethreading tool. That's a combination reamer rethreader, and it has, I can remember you could buy these various inserts. So you ream out the hole if someone had stripped the thread for the spark plug, and it taps a new thread, in which case you put an insert in of whatever suitable depth is, depending on what your engine that you're working on requires, and then you can screw the spark plug back in. So it repairs a stripped thread. Someone's used one of the inserts on a spark plug here, and they've cut little grooves with a hacksaw, and they've obviously used that as a thread chaser to clean out a thread that was just a bit burred. So that possibly will be useful here. I don't need to sell that. If I was going to sell it, I'd probably ask $10 for it. I'm not sure if you can even buy similar things today, or whether you can buy inserts to suit these. Quite possibly, but I don't know. I'm going to keep that one anyway. We'll get to the notepad shortly. I cleaned up the Berco soldering iron a little bit and straightened the tip, and it actually cleaned up really well. It would be a great soldering iron with a new cord. I chopped the old cord off it because, you know, let's face it, we need to protect some people from themselves. And the cord can go in the scrap, as I showed you. And we'll put $10 on that, and someone will no doubt put a new cord on it. And they're a great iron, those ones. I cleaned up the mufflers a little bit, didn't go to any trouble at all, really, just a bit of a very quick scrub, and they dried out in the sun. They're very usable, $5 each. We'll see about $30 back there, and if they don't sell, there's a fair chance I'll use them anyway. That one would be off a 5-horse Briggs & Stratton, probably a horizontal crankshaft. That's off a cheaper one. Those two are, that one I think might be either a Tecumseh engine or maybe, don't think it's a Honda. But someone will recognise it if they need it. These two are very common Briggs mufflers. Even I found someone was selling one of these shields on eBay, and it actually sold for about $20. It was a buy it now, but I'll just include that. I think it suits this muffler here. So say $30 for the mufflers. I cleaned up the Briggs & Stratton fuel tank and carby. It's actually in pretty good condition. There's no wear to the throttle shaft. Everything looks pretty good on it, and as I said, it is nice and clean inside. That would suit probably a 5-horsepower horizontal crankshaft Briggs, possibly off like a rotary hoe or a cement mixer or something like that. An older model, but they're still going, and they do, as I mentioned, get water in the tank, so that will suit someone looking for a replacement part. I'll ask $10 for it. Then it's not worth eBaying because of the postage cost. As for the brush cutter engine, I thought I'd put it in the shop for $10. Just see how we go. Someone may love it to make up another little motorbike engine, or for another purpose, or maybe they've got a brush cutter the same and need a new piston and cylinder, because that one is certainly still usable. Brings us to the notepad. Those few things that most people would have thrown straight in the scrap. $60 return. I expect I'll get that. It may take a while to sell the brush cutter engine, but at only $10, I reckon it would inspire someone to grab it and maybe work out something for it. It's the sort of stuff that makes our shop much more interesting for a lot of mechanically minded people. A lot of wives come into our shop thinking it's just another second-hand antique shop, and the husbands stay out the front until they spot something through the window and they sparks their interest, and they come in and they actually sometimes enjoy the shop more than their wife does. So I like to have this sort of stuff in the shop, because this is the sort of stuff that I would go in to look at, and there's got to be more people in the planet, around the planet like me, surely, or at least a couple. So there we go, $60. Added that to the kitty. We're getting up there. That puts us at just about $7,400, just a whisker under. So it's really interesting to keep adding the totals. And as a few people have asked, how much have you actually sold? Well, I can say nearly all of it, because if anything sits in the shop too long, it gets discounted. But my prices, as you can see, are cheap enough that sooner or later someone grabs the stuff. And with the mufflers, that's fine. If they sit there, I will use them, and they'll be worth more than $5 each to me if I put one on a lawnmower and then sell the mower. Saves me spending $30, $40, whatever dollars on a new muffler. So there we go. Thanks for watching, guys. Another episode from the Emergency Storage Shed Clean Out series. We're back on track. It's, what's today, Wednesday, and this episode I'll probably put out tonight, maybe tomorrow. So we're back on track with an episode every week. I'll stick with it. Thanks for sticking with me. Bye for now.